Hi and welcome back to the course. In this video we're finally going to start saving our items to a database. The first thing to do is to open up your app.py, and what we're going to do is cut both item and item list resources. Just cut them, and then we're going to create a new file called item.py and paste them in. Okay, that's the first thing. And also remember to remove the items list from there, because now we're going to start putting things in a database and we're no longer going to use the in-memory database, which is just a list. Okay. Now we are using the item and item list classes here, so we have to make sure to import them. So say from item import item list. Remember, item is the name of the file. In our case, it's item.py, so just use item. If you call this something else, then use that. Now, because we no longer have any resources defined in here, we don't need to import resource from Flask RESTful. And because we no longer have any methods that require a JWT defined in here, we also don't need JWT required. We don't have a request parser, so we don't need that. And we're also not accessing any particular requests, so we also don't need request. Okay, the rest of things we do need. Now let's go into the item.py file that we've created, and we have to make sure to import the necessary things. So from Flask RESTful import resource and rec parse, and from Flask JWT import JWT required, and also import SQLite 3, because we're going to be needing that to access the database. Okay, if I've forgotten anything, then apologies for that. It is possible that I've forgotten something, and I'm sure we'll find out when we try this with Postman. So what we're going to do in this video is retrieve items from the database. So the first thing is get this get method and delete everything in it. You know the drill with interacting with a database. The first thing we have to do is to set up a connection, data.db, and then create a cursor, which is connection.cursor. Now the query that we're going to be using in this particular instance is select star from items, and then we're going to perform filtering as well, because we don't want to select all of the items. We want to select an item where the item's name matches a particular row, so where name equals question mark. And then we are going to store the result in a variable called result, but you can call your variable whatever you want, of course. Cursor.execute the query with the name. The name is the parameter, and remember that has to be in a tuple, so we have to put the comma at the end because we're only passing a single value tuple. Now, the name should be unique, so we know that the result.fetch1 is going to give us the only row with a specific name. Because we're doing where name equals something, there should only be one row or no rows coming back, so we don't have to worry about having multiple rows coming back. Now that we've got the row out, we can do connection.close because we no longer need the connection open. And then what we're going to do is, if the row exists, if the row is not none, we're going to return a JSON, which is item is a set of name, row 0, and price, row 1. And if the row didn't exist, then we're going to return a message saying item not found or something like that. Okay? Now, we don't need this else statement there at all, because if the row is not none, we're going to return this, and then we're just going to exit the method, and if this return doesn't happen, then we're going to run this one. So the else statement is kind of logically implicit here, which is nice. It saves us some code, makes things a bit easier to read as well. Okay, so this is the way to retrieve the item from the database. And we should test this out using Postman. But of course, the first thing that we have to do is to make sure that we have some data in the database that we can retrieve, because right now there won't be any. So let's go to our create tables script, and we are going to create a new table. So I'm just going to copy that and make sure to create table if not exists, items, and then have the correct columns here. So the first one is name, and that's a text, and the second one is price, and that is going to be a real. Real is just a decimal, a number with a decimal point, such as 10.99, for example. And then I'm also going to do cursor execute, insert into items, values, test, and 10.99. So what this is going to do is it's going to insert into the items table this following set of values, which is test for the name and 10.99 for the price. Finally, we're going to commit and close as usual, and what we'll end up with is 2 tables and 1 row in the items table. Make sure to delete data.db, because we're going to recreate it using these 2 tables now. Let's go to the terminal. I'm going to clear that out and run from within the code folder the create table script, and then you can run the app.py. Then go over to Postman, and we're going to go over the entire thing again. So I'm going to close these tabs that are not required, and then we're going to do register first of all. Remember to register with a username and password that you know. So that's invalid credentials, because this register method should be register and it is auth. Make sure to save things as you change them. So I'm going to register now. User created successfully with Jose and ASDF. So all we've done here is made a post request to the register endpoint. Then in the auth, we're going to make sure to use the same username and password. And now we're calling the auth endpoint. So I'm going to send that. And what I get back is, as you would expect, the auth token. So make sure to copy that, not include the quotation marks. And then we're going to get an item, and the item we're going to get is test, because that is the test item that we've inserted in our create tables script. In the headers, make sure to have your new authorization token, and remember that the authorization header has to be JWT space and then the token. And there we have it. We have test with price 10.99, which is exactly what we inserted in here. So going back to item, let's just recap the code quickly. What we've done is the usual to select an item from the database where the name matches a specific item. And then if there was a row, then we are returning the JSON. Item is a name and a price. And if not, we're going to return item not found. And remember, the get method retrieves the item from this last bit of the URL. Let's try test 2, and as you can see, we get item not found back because there isn't a row with this name. It's important that you not only try things that work, but also try the things that you know shouldn't work. That's also important in this case, item not found. Okay, so that's everything for this video. We are now able to retrieve items from a database, and this has limited use until we can also insert items into the database, and that's what we're going to do in the next video. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you there.